record low unemployment for African Americans and Hispanic workers with disabilities. The lowest unemployment rate in 70 years for American women, and you make up half the economy and probably 2/3 of the brains. No, really, think about it. To pause for a second, when I was trying to name me a time when you thought any Democrat would get the endorsement within a week. Every single environmental group out there, the AFL-CIO, the women's groups. I mean, here's the deal.
Relatively flat, up about 100 points. Stocks trending a little bit up amid stimulus package hopes. The White House and Democrats in Congress are pushing forward with plans for a nearly $2 trillion stimulus package. Lawmakers could start voting on this as soon as next week. Both the Federal Reserve and the Biden administration have been...
So Republican lawmakers in the House are now pushing for permanent tax cuts. The Republicans have actually proposed several changes, everybody, that may negatively impact the economy. And the Federal Reserve has just announced its new plan to tackle inflation and the rising cost of necessities, including gas and groceries. More relief may actually be coming soon in the form of stimulus relief debit cards. And now, House Republicans on the Ways and Means Committee are also seeking to make the tax cuts and adjustments enacted in the 2017 overhaul of the tax system permanent. It's a move economists would say actually going to stimulate the economy, and at the same time, the Federal Reserve is trying to rein against a 40-year high inflation. But can it be done? Well, everybody wants to know. So, another measure proposed by representatives and senators is going to allow machinery costs to be written off as a tax deduction when they're purchased. So, economists say that cutting taxes and increasing the deficit at a time when President in-person-assisted inflation needs to be tamed will only add to the fuel of price increases. Altogether, everybody, tax cuts in 2017 laws added $1 trillion in government debt through 2028. And when asked whether the cuts will add to inflation, and Republicans are working on opposition on this to help so many people across the state. So the governor, everybody, Janet Mills, approved the distribution of the checks in April, with the total cost of the stimulus payments estimated to be around $730 million. To qualify, applicants must have lived in the state for a full year and must have filed their taxes in 2021 by October 31st in order to receive the money. Eligible applicants must make less than $100,000 annually if filing individually, or $200,000 if filing jointly, as all according to the governor's office. However, dependents are not eligible for the payments, and residents of Virginia only have a matter of days to file the necessary paperwork in order to claim the missing stimulus money. So be sure to act now and be sure to act quick in order to receive your stimulus checks. To the Federal Reserve's monetary policy, well, the Republicans said that economic conditions were improved by the moves in 2017. And data from the labor market released department earlier this week showed that inflation has remained above 8% for 7 months in a row. The Federal Reserve, in response, has raised the interest rates to slow economic activity and bring prices down. During a recent meeting, the Federal Reserve said that slower economic growth is specifically going to help inflation calm down. A study published by the San Francisco Federal Reserve found that current inflation is caused more by supply factors than demand factors. Analysts say that over a long span of time, some of the proposed tax cut extensions could be deflationary, but that the prospect of a recession may complicate those effects. Now, California, everybody, is already sending out millions of more money to millions of more people in the state. The payments which started going out in the last 7th of the last month range from $200 to $1,000 depending on income and other factors. About 18 million payments will be distributed over the next few months. That's benefiting up to 23 million Californians. The cash payouts are part of a June budget deal, and to be eligible, you need to have filed a 2020 tax return by October 15th. And there's an exception for people who did not file by the October deadline because they were waiting on individuals' tax and payer identification number. Unfortunately, everybody, people who didn't file taxes for 2020, including seniors and disabled people, were left out. People who can be claimed as dependents for tax purposes won't get their own payments either. The payments also won't go to married or domestic partners who have an adjusted gross income.
We're in a place where some big pieces, and we're moving in a direction where we can get some more done and people will see it.
I'm so glad you're here today. You have a doctorate in chemical engineering. It's my understanding that most natural gas pipelines, and we talked about them, are not equipped to ship blends of methane and hydrogen where the hydrogen component is greater than 20%. Could you please explain to all of us how a conventional natural gas pipeline differs from a pipeline which is capable of shipping blends with more than 20% hydrogen?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Senator Barrasso. So hydrogen being such a small molecule and corrosive can create cracks and attack imperfections.
Are stimulus checks going to be sent out immediately? I know many of you are wondering what's the status for a fourth round of stimulus payments. Well, new information has just been released, everybody. I know many of you are hoping for another round of enhanced child tax credit law this year passed by congressional lawmakers. However, you might live in one of the many states making plans to send more money to families between this year and 2023. The last monthly child tax credit payment was disbursed in December, with the final check arriving after parents filed their tax returns this year. There is a Republican Senate proposal that would send up to $350 per child and includes a work requirement. The proposal from Mitt Romney will restart monthly payments for millions of people. But unlike previous stimulus efforts, Romney's plan, which is officially known as the Family Security Act, could put the work requirements in place for millions of recipients. The Family Security Act will provide monthly benefits of up to $350 a month for families with children 0 to 5, and $250 per month to those with children ages 6 to 17. The maximum monthly payment for families would be $1,250, and expectant parents would be able to apply for benefits to begin 4 months prior to their child's due date. In a statement, Romney said his act creates a new national commitment to American families by modernizing and streamlining antiquated federal policies. The biggest element of Romney's plan is the inclusion of work requirements for payment recipients. Details on the exact requirements were not included in the plan, but a common threshold for a state-level benefit is 80 hours a week a month, or a comparable amount of job training or volunteer change.
They do it with these stamp-sized computers powered by Bluetooth and attached to any product or packaging, from vaccines.
It allows us to measure the temperature, the location, the authenticity.
To zucchinis.
Each zucchini that goes into a crate joins a unique monitoring path.
Smart crates monitoring everything moving from farm to fork. Williot is working with label giant Avery Dennison, which is manufacturing millions of these tags and connecting them to the cloud so they can be tracked anywhere.
Now, a new budget model indicates that the White House $10,000 student loan handout will add $330 billion to the deficit. The figure is significantly more than the $305 billion the budget office estimates will be cut from the deficit over the next decade. That is because on the new Inflation Reduction Act, which was signed into law, the president of nonpartisan committee responsible for the budget told reporters that the president repeatedly talked about how much he cared about reducing the deficit, and they may now wipe out the amount of deficit reduction in a matter of minutes with a stroke of a pen. Early today, Biden announced plans to cancel $10,000 for borrowers, making $125,000 annually. Pell Grant recipients will receive $20,000 in debt cancellation, provided their income is below $125,000 threshold. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona shared his thoughts on the issue. He said earning a college degree or